Hi, everybody. Hello and good evening. I'm just so pleased that so many of you have decided to join us. Many of you join us month after month for the regular monthly connection, but we have a very special episode this evening, a special webinar, a workshop in itself, actually. I want to thank my girls for the pregame show. Beverly and Lynette always do such a good job of starting to bring us all together. And I heard them saying that don't feel bad if they didn't see your name. If you typed it in the chat coming in, they could barely keep up with all of you flowing in here, but thanks for the love, girls. Okay, so how tonight will go. I always start the monthly connection telling you the sequence of events, but tonight is very different from the normal evenings. Usually once a month, I get together and I share the latest evidence from my readings in the past month, and then the many lessons and teachings that have come from Spirit. This month is a bit like that, except it's just one big lesson from something that's been ongoing with me since December, the beginning of December, or a little bit before then. And it all just came together in the past month with truly beautiful messages that I see are for all of us. And that's always my goal, that I can share my stories, but I hope that in doing so, you relate it to yourself, and I do a good job of showing you how it relates to you, and always going to be laced with stories from the greater reality to back up the teaching that you are so much more than only human. So lots of spiritual teaching this evening, and lots of good stories, and a special guest. My wonderful assistant Valerie is going to be joining us at the end for a different slant on everything that I'm going to be sharing with you. So we should go a full 2 hours. I don't know if we'll have time for Q&A at the end, maybe a little, but we'll just flow with it. It might not even feel right to do Q&A. So we'll just see how the energy feels. I will be sharing slides most of the evening, and I've set it up so that you'll see me on the screen at the same time as the slides. You control how big my image is and how big the slide is. So at any time when I'm showing slides, you can grab the corner or the side of my image and make it bigger if you want. I think there might be a minimum size small, but whatever. Just play with that if you feel like it. And pretty much that's it. So let's begin, as we always do, though, with an invocation so that you don't feel like just an observer of this. I want you to feel that you are part of this, which you are. This is a community we have here, and that's what makes these events so special. We're kindred spirits gathered together for the same purpose, to feel the love, to know that we have love at our very center, to share it with each other, and always to receive healing and insights from these gatherings. So would you join me for an invocation, please? Let's just close our eyes for a minute to shut out the outer world. Take in a nice deep breath slowly, pull it all the way into the abdomen. And now exhale even more slowly and longer than it took you to inhale, relaxing thoroughly as you do so. Just become centered as you relax. Your body is calming down, and move your awareness from the head down into the heart area. You have a light there. Let's turn that inner light up, just like today's daily way message from my guide, Sanaya. Shine that light. Send it out to the universe, connecting all of us in awareness. Even if you're not joining us live, you're watching this later, I hope you're doing this invocation with us, because we are all connected just by the intention to share in this experience together. And so we affirm that each of us is here for a reason. May that reason become clear as this night proceeds. May we feel the connection. May we feel the love and know that that love comes from within us, not from without. And may we feel connected to all that is and hear exactly what we need to hear this evening. And may we receive healing on any level it's needed as a result of this experience. Let's send ourselves a wave of gratitude for answering that inner nudge to be part of this special gathering this evening. And so it is. Yay. All right. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Like I said, you can adjust the size as you like. There we go. I'm looking at my assistant, Bev. I can see her. Does everything look good, Bev? Yep. Okay, cool. Yay, we're off and running then. Okay, so I just want to tell you that I just came this last weekend from teaching my Personal Mediumship Plus class in Savannah, Georgia. And I know that some of you who are with us this evening were there, and the energy was off the charts, and we just had so many people receive healing and insights just like we're going to get this evening. So before we get rolling with the actual teaching, it was so transformational for so many that I wanted to take a minute and just let you all know that I will be doing that exact same course again in Reno, Nevada later this summer. So hit the East Coast this weekend, and I'm heading west in the US later this summer. And a very special notice, for the first time ever, I'm going to be doing Personal Mediumship Plus overseas. Are you ready, my friends, in the UK and Europe? Later this year, I'm going to be teaching Personal Mediumship Plus in London. I've already booked the venue. I was going to give you the dates, but something just came up yesterday that caused me to have to wait on those dates because I might have to adjust them a little, but we're looking at the October-November timeframe. So if you're on my newsletter list and you're at all interested in that, we will be sending out a very special announcement, and it will also be posted on my homepage. Here's a screenshot of anytime you want to know what my upcoming events are, go to my homepage, and right under featured events, you see here's tonight. I'll be at the Omega Institute in New York, and then Reno, Nevada, and of course the Alaska cruise is a big, big gathering. So enough of that. I want to share with you a little bit of the magic. I want to say magic, but it's not really magic, from the spirit world to get us rolling, because I'm going to be talking about the spirit world all evening, and it's always great to bring in just some signs, some synchronicities, a little bit of the wonder of how we're all connected. And those of you who listen to our monthly connection, join in with us month after month, will remember the story of the guinea pig, which I told, I think, last month, if not the month before, where I was doing a Q&A podcast, and Lynette fielded a question from the audience about animals who are reincarnated. And I checked in with my guides for an answer and used the example of a guinea pig. And as I said that, I looked up at my guides on camera and I said, interesting choice, because they had always given me examples of how there are group souls for animals like cows and geckos, but not for a guinea pig. Well, after that session was over, I got an email about 5 minutes later from a mom whose son is in the spirit. And she said, Suzanne, I have to tell you, I've never watched one of your podcasts live, but just before I went to watch this one, I asked my son in spirit, can you show me that you're around me by sending me a sign of a guinea pig? And now I know that was absolutely a setup from spirit. So that's the backstory. I want to tell you all that I got another email from that mom, I think just last week. She was using my new Awakened Way app. Let me pull that up for you. If you're not familiar with it, you'll want to be. The daily messages from Sanaya are on there. Every day gets updated. So you hold them right there in your hand. But when you click on this certain button that's at the bottom of every message, also in the menu, Get Guidance Now, something like that. Not sure about the exact wording. When you click this button and use it like an oracle, we've been having absolute miracles happen. And this woman wrote, the guinea pig mom, as we call her now, her name is Jane. Jane wrote to tell me that it was her son, who's here in physical form's birthday just recently. And she was really missing her son, who's in spirit. And she said, Tony, let us know you're around on your brother's birthday. What sign are you going to send? And she heard the word bat. She didn't know if it was a kind of a bat that flies or a bat like baseball, but she was open to that. She felt nudged to go to the Awaken Way app, push the oracle button. Are you ready? This message out of 5,000 messages in the archives came up, and it says, at bat. At bat is the title of the post. The post is really beautiful about how we're all connected in spirit, but even more beautiful is the fact that the original date of this message is Tony's birthday, her son in spirit. So this showed up on her son here's birthday with this perfect validation. They're my first goosebumps of the evening. So we're just starting with a little bit of the wonder, the magic, the celebration of this big web. And it just points to the fact that you are not only human. If we were, these kind of things wouldn't be possible when we connect across the veil. And you are part of one big web. And these kinds of synchronicities and signs, evidence from the spirit world show us this. And we all know the more we sit in the presence of these beautiful signs and the presence of those in spirit, that the creative and healing force of the universe is love. Love is lack of separation. I will tell you, I did a reading for Jane and Tony came through beautifully. So he's a bit of a pushy guy across the veil, but it worked. So I can see why he's so good at communicating with his mom. All of our loved ones across the veil are doing their best to let us know they are still right here with us. So these three principles here on the screen are what I call the awakened way. And it's how I try to live my life. And it's what I love sharing with all of you, that when you can keep these 3 points foremost in your mind, they're already in your heart, then life just becomes much more joyous. It's full of ups and downs, of course, but it just seems to flow more. This is my stepdaughter, Suzanne. She's the one that showed me all of these points long before the young man named Wolf came to me from across the veil and made it very clear how to live the awakened way. But Susan's the one who showed me even before she passed that love unites us all. Well, she passed to the spirit world, and it was her passing that caused me to question reality. There's a process called self-inquiry, and I hope that you'll all look into that. Google self-inquiry on the internet after this webinar is over, maybe tomorrow, over the next week. When you start asking, what is real and who am I? Then you start to see the world differently. Until you start questioning what we've taken for granted our whole lives until we awaken, we kind of are inside this little box. But once you start sitting quietly in the silence, noticing how life flows, questioning reality, you start to get a different viewpoint. I'm going to give you a little example right now of how simple it is to find a reality within you that never changes. All right. Here's just a little slide I made with the number 6 on it. So I'd like you to just close your eyes for a moment and have that 6 in mind. And now I'm going to say something else. Are you ready? 8. All right. Now, what am I talking about going 6, 8? We in our human world focus on what's in our external world. You were aware of a 6 and an 8, but what I was aware of was this big pause between the 6 and the 8. If you can go back a minute in your mind and capture that feeling that every single one of us, hundreds of us, shared in that moment, it was this, what we would call a pregnant pause. It was just filled with possibility. You didn't know what was coming after the 6. You were extremely present. Your story, everything that probably has been running through your mind all day was suddenly set aside as you were simply what? Aware, present, right here, waiting, watching, wondering, but I didn't give you enough time for thoughts to arise. So what every single one of us, hundreds of us, in that moment when I said 6, and before anything else came up, every one of us was aware. Awareness itself simply being. This may not make sense to anybody who hasn't questioned reality, but to me, that moment was not empty. It was fullness. Anything could have come after that. And you can train yourself to hold those moments when you are aware awareness being. That is who all of us are at our basic essence. You come to know this, and you know that because we share this basic essence, we can connect with all other beings because all of us arise from that same aware state. So when you question reality, when you do simple little practices like that, you start to experience yourself as a local self. That means here you are sitting in the chair, sitting on the couch, stretched out on your bed, but you are also the entire sea of consciousness, this entire field of awareness. We are all connected through and by this field. That's why we speak of love as lack of separation. It's the field that connects us all at our most basic essence. I'm going through the fundamentals of this so that when I share my personal story that happened in the past month, when I bring it all back to the deeper meaning of it, this will make much more sense to you. For now, let me just share with you, in case you haven't already heard this, that just last October, the Nobel Prize in Physics was given to 3 scientists who showed that the phenomenon of entanglement, that all is connected, is real. So scientists now have to accept that the physical world is not the be-all and end-all. There is something beyond, beneath, essential, causal to this physical world. I say that when we combine, let me move this over there. There we go. When we combine science and religion and spirituality, we can call that 21st century spirituality. In my mind, the train left the station in the 20th century, but scientists were slow to catch on. They don't want to admit that the brain doesn't cause reality, that consciousness is basic to all reality. To experience consciousness, yourself as awareness at the very core, we need to be sitting in the silence. So I hope that you will practice at least 3 minutes a day of questioning reality, sitting in the silence, and you can start with my Sip of the Divine meditation, which you can find on YouTube. No More Meditation Excuses is the name. 3 minutes a day, every day, I guarantee you will change your life. So the basic fundamental understanding I hope to share with you. Let me adjust my screen there. There we go. Is that everything arises from one field of consciousness. My favorite quote from Rumi, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. I have to laugh because this evening, as this webinar is going on, here in the United States, we have our president addressing the country in the annual State of the Union address, and you're going to have 2 completely different parties, and you would just feel the energy of difference between them. It doesn't matter who the president is, year after year, you can just feel the opposition between our American 2 parties. And I just wish that everybody in power could memorize this phrase right here, out beyond ideas of my party and your party. Put any situation in there, there is a field. I will meet you there. And this is an example of that field. Whoops. I became aware of why we all arise from this field of awareness when I was walking around at Christmas time one year, and I saw this light shining on a palm tree when I lived in Florida. Where the light shined on the fronds, you could see all the glittering. But where there were no branches, there was no light. It was this aha moment for me that there is this light that shines from this field. It is a field of light, but it needs something to shine against, to reflect against, to be seen, to be known. And so This light shines outward through billions of forms, which I call you and me, or you might want to call souls. All of us a reflection of that light, which is why I took our inner light and had you shine it outwards as we connected. So each of us is an individual light created in the image of the one light, and we're all here to live our unique stories. No one better than another, no one worse than another. In the having the essence of this light, we're all equal. Where you put your point of view as you enact your story makes all the difference. This is fundamental to tonight's teaching about healing. As long as you see yourself as a limited human being who is only human, then your options are limited. But when you begin to see yourself as arising from this shared field of awareness, not even wholly physical, but physical and spirit at the same time, then healing becomes possible. And then not only possible, the more you shift your awareness to the limitless state of your being, which you come to know by questioning reality and sitting in the silence regularly, then healing is not only possible, but probable. So the first thing to learn is that you can shift your perspective at will once you realize you're not stuck in only human mode. This is something that I've learned thanks to Susan, thanks to this journey I've been on since 2006. And I shift throughout the day continuously. I'm shifting back and forth to my guides right now to make sure that I'm saying what they want me to say. So even though I'm very pleased with my connection with Source, with my guides, does that mean my life is perfect? Not always. It's certainly way better than it used to be, especially because when things go wrong, which they do for us in the human world, it's full of ups and downs, I have tools and I can go into meditation. That's kind of like the relief valve, the escape valve, to be able to set aside the story and find the peace that's always here. So now for my story, which I recognize is only a story, just a part of the greater aspect of this one. Each of you also a story, part of one aspect of a greater you. So it was about early December, late November, I started to notice that I was having heartburn more frequently than normal. Normal for me, my whole life has been maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks if I overeat or eat something specifically spicy, even though my husband calls me the sriracha queen. If I would get heartburn, I would take some Tums and it would go away. But about late November, early December, I started noticing it more often until I was having heartburn every day and Tums were not taking it away. This was a little concerning to me. So I went and I found some alternative remedies, papaya enzymes, and they would each work for a little bit. But then I was mixing Tums and papaya enzymes. And again, the frequency of the heartburn was definitely noticeable. So I reached out to my sister, Janice, and I said, Janice, I remember that our mom had gastric reflux disease called GERD. It just blows my mind that they call it a disease where the acid regularly comes up from your stomach and it can be damaging to the esophagus. But I remember that my mother, here's Ruthie shown here, was on medication for years in her later years because I was in charge of her medication. And I said to my sister, by any chance, do you have GERD as well? And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we had never discussed that. And I said to her, uh-oh, I think I have it too. It must be genetic. That's why I have the DNA symbol here. So I went to my primary care physician, told him about the symptoms, and I was prescribed famotidine, which is a the generic name for an over-the-counter drug called Pepcid, if I remember correctly. And man, it worked immediately. Within a day, no symptoms. 2 days later, no symptoms. 3 days later, no heartburn. I said, this is great. But I did notice it said, you should only take this for 2 weeks at a time, then lay off for 2 weeks, and then, check with your doctor. But I figured we'll deal with that. But really, after only 4 or 5 days, suddenly I noticed I was feeling sad. And I have trained myself to be aware, because we are awareness being this human being. So the more we're aware of what we're dealing with, the more we can manage our life with consciousness. So sadness is really not part of my being these days. And I had no reason to be sad. So I just kind of noted that, didn't relate it to anything. And then the next day, I didn't just feel sad, I felt empty. And that's the whole level of sadness. And I know that we are fullness expressing itself. In fact, on my homepage, it says, I'm here to take everyone from emptiness to fullness. And here I was feeling empty. And I said, what has changed? And I remembered this medication. I'd only been on it 4 or 5 days. So I dug in the internet to see, could this little over-the-counter drug, really, I got a prescription, but anybody could get the same strength medication, cause sadness or emptiness? Sure enough, right on a list of side effects were the exact words in combination, sad and empty. Oh man, I stopped it right away. I figured there has to be a better way. So my primary care physician gave me a referral to a gastroenterologist, a GI doctor. And I went in and I was sitting there with a nurse practitioner, and I described what happened with the famotidine. And she looked at me like I was a crazy person. She said, I never heard of anybody feeling sad and empty from taking Pepcid, but I know my body. You all know your body. I hope you will all stand up for yourself when you trust what your body's telling you. And she said, all right, well, there are other alternatives. And she gave me a prescription for this drug called omeprazole. It's what my mother took for years. It was on that list that I gave to every doctor she went to, omeprazole, but it is also an over-the-counter drug. I didn't even fill the prescription. I figured, why go to the trouble? I just went to the counter and picked up the same strength of that. I think it's called Prilosec. So a very common drug. And I figured, well, this one, I'm going to be on the lookout for feeling sad and empty. I did not feel sad and empty, but I did start noticing, putting together some pieces of the puzzle. My brain wasn't quite working right, but I did not connect this at all with the omeprazole. First clue, and I started making a list in my phone because honestly, I thought these might be early onset signs of dementia. You'll see why. Once it started adding up, I really started questioning what's going on. We had some friends came to stay with us for 4 nights for a milestone birthday for Ty. Here he is opening presents during that visit. Her name is Lindy, and I got to introduce her to several people, and every time I went to introduce her, I would hesitate and I'd say, Mindy, her name would not come out right. And I don't know if she's watching tonight, but if she is, this is why I messed up your name, Lindy. I know who you are, but it came out wrong every time. Just a silly little thing. But more alarming to me was just a couple of days later, Ty had flown off somewhere and he flew back in. I drove to the airport to get him. It's 15 minutes away from here. And I went to stretch my legs in the cell phone lot, and I reached down and I had not put my seatbelt on. I don't even ride across a parking lot without putting my seatbelt on. And how could I not have heard the ding, ding, ding in the car that says your seatbelt's not on? It puzzled me very much, but I didn't know what was going on. The next day I went for a bike ride. I was 5 miles into the bike ride when suddenly I became aware I didn't have my helmet on. I never ride my bike out of the driveway without my helmet on. I didn't even know I didn't have my helmet on, let alone the fact that I forgot to pick it up off the shelf right in front of my eyes. I put my gloves on. Miss Safety here, no helmet. That went on the list immediately. Am I losing my mind? Then we went out to dinner with two friends who have lived in the same community for 3 years. We spent all evening with this couple, 3 hours right across the table from each other. I went back and sat down and was sending an email to somebody about who we had spent the evening with. I could not remember his name. Now, I know anybody that's over 50, when you get to that age, a name will, you got to grab it after a second. Well, after a second, no name. Now I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is crazy. What's his name? I asked Spirit. Half an hour later, I could not remember the man's name, and I'd spent the entire evening with him. I had to ask Ty. I wrote it on my list. The next day, I went for a walk. I'm by myself, walking out for an exercise walk, and this wave of vertigo so big came over me that I literally stumbled to the right and had to stand along the side of the road with my hands on my knees, trying to get my balance. And this is when I started to say, okay, something is seriously going on here. I wondered if it might be the omeprazole, but I couldn't believe it would have caused these challenges. And then I'm almost finished with the list, everybody, but I want you to know how much of a message this medicine was giving me. Here's my beautiful car that I backed into our mailbox. 27 years of marriage to Ty, I have not put a dent in any vehicle, but during this period of being knocked off balance, how do you back into your own mailbox? Luckily, I know my husband, and I never once thought, how am I going to tell Ty? Oh, goodness. And then when I knew I just had to absolutely make a connection with the omeprazole was the next day walking the dogs with Ty, and I fell right into him with another wave of dizziness. So without even asking the doctor, I just stopped the omeprazole. I said, that's it. I know my body. I know how I react to things. What am I going to do? I can't take medication. My body has become so sensitive to everything. I can't even do over-the-counter drugs. So I just stopped it, and almost immediately the heartburn came back. Well, I was all set to do a reading that week that I stopped the medication. The dizziness pretty much stopped right away. No new incidents of confusion, but the heartburn pretty bad. How do you like this little heart I put on there? A burning heart. Well, I needed to know, am I okay to do a reading? So what did I do? Well, I always play the sign game with my guide, Brenda, who's in spirit. If you followed my work, you know that I asked my guide, Brenda, what is our beautiful friend Lynette doing right now? Tell me, I'll check with her. If it's validated, then I know I'm connected well with spirit. So I said, Brenda, what's Lynette doing right now? And she showed me that TV show Bewitched. If you're old enough, you'll remember Elizabeth Montgomery, who used to wiggle her nose like this. Brenda went like this and wiggled her nose and said, bewitched. I texted Lynette. I said, Brenda is showing me this as we play the sign game, getting ready to do a reading. Do you know that Lynette texted back? She said, Suzanne, just this second, I hit send on an email to a friend who I was telling about somebody we know who feels like they lived a past life and was executed for being a witch. So this showed me Brenda was in on that conversation. I am connected to her. Let's do that reading. So did the reading. The beautiful part about when we expand our consciousness, like we do when doing a reading, especially when I channel, there is no pain in the body. You get in that expanded state and pain just disappears. So there was no heartburn to distract me during the reading. I had an excellent connection with my client. And I shared this story with those of you who were part of the monthly connection last month. Suddenly, in the middle of that reading, I sensed the presence of Jesus. Really surprised me to feel Jesus, but I recognized his energy. I know he always appears to me over here. At first, I was just getting a message, and then he appeared to me, and I knew it was him. So I want to recap for those of you who weren't with us last month exactly what he said, because it was just so magical. I said to my client, I know you have a, got a little funny thing on the text there. I know you have a very personal relationship with Jesus. If you haven't already met him in your meditations, he's going to make it very clear that he's there. He wants you to know you're worthy of being friends with Jesus. He doesn't want to be put up on a pedestal. He is a healer. He wants to take your hand and walk you through that curtain to knowing. And my client got all choked up and said, thank you, I appreciate that. I always love evidence. Jesus must have known I need it. And I said, he's showing me now you have a necklace of a cross that you keep hidden. Well, she was wearing a turtleneck. She reached into that turtleneck and pulled out the cross and smiled. And I said, this message for you is coming straight from Jesus, who I converse with a lot. And she said, I talk to him all the time. I actually even asked him to talk through you today to give me a message. You have no idea how healing this is. And she started crying. And as that unfolded, Jesus finished the message and said, my child, you are this spirit too. His message for all of us was, don't put me on a pedestal. We are all children of God. So if any of you have taken my Your Emerging Soul course, which is available on my website as an on-demand course, you will have heard this story. But I wanted to share with you tonight why I so thoroughly trusted that connection with Jesus that night and how I know his presence. A little bit of background, I was raised with no religion. That Ruthie that you saw there, she didn't even let us talk about Jesus. I don't know what happened in her background, but religion was almost taboo in our family. And it was very clear that she became very uncomfortable talking about Jesus. And I just kind of picked up that energy growing up. Well, on this path I'm on now, you get led to certain books, and A Course in Miracles is one that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and it is allegedly channeled material from Jesus. I say allegedly, but I certainly know that it is his energy. I was reading a book called the Yeshua Letters by John Mark Hammer years ago, and he started channeling Jesus, just as Helen Schuckman did in A Course in Miracles. I was sitting on my couch reading the Yeshua Letters, and I was so impressed by how John Mark doubted this connection. Why would Jesus come to him, was his question over and over. And so he asked Jesus to show him that he was truly with him. And I thought, well, that's no different than I do with spirits. I ask spirits to give me evidence. I wonder if I could do the same thing with Jesus. And so I just simply sat on the couch, put the book aside, expanded my awareness, shifted, as I teach so many people to do, just shift to the level where my intention was to meet with Jesus for the first time ever, and said, Jesus, if it serves the better good, the greater good, please come to me now. I was overcome with this presence that just settled down over me, loving beyond anything I had felt in my entire life. And I knew it was his energy. And I also knew it was okay to ask for evidence. And I said, if this is you, can you give me a Bible verse that's meaningful and relevant to this moment now? It was the perfect way for me to ask for evidence because I had never read the Bible in its entirety. Bits and pieces that you pick up growing up, you hear certain pieces of scripture, but never studied it. I had a study Bible that I had picked up, as my spiritual journey began right after 9/11. I turned a little bit to organized religion, but it just didn't feel right to me at the time. So I got that study Bible. It was gathering dust on my shelf. So when I asked, give me a Bible verse, instantly, in my mind, I heard Thessalonians 1st, 2:13. Just then, Ty walked into the living room where I was and broke the connection. I turned to him and I said, Ty, what is Thessalonians? I didn't even know what it was. I'd never heard it before in my life. And he looked startled because he knows me. He knew I didn't study the Bible, but he had been raised in the church. And he said, well, it's a book or chapter straight out of the Bible. Why? And I said, I need to look it up. I'll tell you later. I went and I had to search for that study Bible and I found it. And I looked up Thessalonians 2:13, and here's what it said. When you received the word of God, which you heard from us, you accepted it, not as a human word, but as it actually is, the word of God, which is indeed at work in you who believe. This to me was an extremely relevant verse. What it says to me is, you asked, is this the word of God? Is this the presence of God with you here? If you believe, it is at work in you now. Wow. But could that have been a coincidence? But I never even heard this before. Well, the next day, I went for my daily meditation, not expecting anything. And there is the presence of Jesus again. I didn't even ask for him. He just descended around me, merged his heart with mine, and said, unbidden, Corinthians 2:14, blessings be upon you. I wrote this down as it came through. 1 Corinthians, the words you find will speak to you. Trust them when they speak to the heart. These were his words to me. I don't remember what happened in the rest of that meditation, but you know what I did when I came out of meditation, went straight to that same study Bible and looked up Corinthians 2:14. And there was a first and a second. I had no idea. So here's 1 Corinthians 2:14. The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. I even had trouble understanding these words at first, but now it's so clear to me. If you're not spiritual, if you don't really feel Spirit in your heart, you won't trust things, you won't accept things that truly do come from Spirit. These can only be discerned through the Spirit, and the heart is the bridge to Spirit. Could there be another more relevant verse than that for somebody who's doubting, for somebody who's trying to believe that this is Source really talking to them? Well, I kind of put that aside. I don't know that I heard from Jesus again after that. All I know is that months later, Ty and I were getting ready to go on a trip to Key West, Florida, loading up the car, and suddenly I hear a voice that says, get Joel Goldsmith's little book. And I knew immediately what little book he was talking about. It's this one. And here it is on the screen. Joel Goldsmith has passed to the other side, but wrote a whole bunch of beautiful books about spirituality. And this one is literally little. That's why I knew what they were talking about. This voice, whoever it was, clearly a guide. And I grabbed the book and took it on the road with us. Ty's driving down the highway, and I feel this nudge to start looking through the book. So I'm randomly looking through the book, and the voice says, start at the beginning. Look at every page. Well, I had highlighted certain parts when I had read it, and I had dated it. 5 years earlier, I had read that book and had not picked it up in 5 years. I get to page 27. I'm hearing, do not only read the highlighted parts, read every word. Well, happily, it's small, not too much on each page. So I'm reading every word. I get to page 27, and I read some words that sound a little familiar to me. Here's a screenshot from page 27. The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, etc., etc. That Spirit of God and foolishness, where had I heard that recently? Maybe a few months earlier. I turned the page. Notice though, there are quotations here, but there's no footnote. There's no reference. It's not highlighted. And there's no indication that this is a Bible verse. I flip a page over, page 28 is on the left, here's page 29. Just 2 pages later, I read these words. When you received the word of God, which you heard of us, you received it not as the word of men, but as it is in truth, the word of God, which works also in you who believe. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Look at this, quotation marks, no Bible reference. It's not highlighted. I clearly paid no attention to this 5 years earlier, but these words, the only words in quote back to back, there were no other quotations on page 28. I couldn't wait till we got to Key West. This was back before we had internet in the car and on our phones. First thing I did was get on the internet and I looked up these words as a search. And I think you can see what's coming. It was the exact 2 verses Jesus had given me when I asked him to come to me and asked him to show me it was really him. And then I recalled the words that he had said to me that weren't even a Bible verse. The words you find will speak to you. Trust them when they speak to the heart. And look at the next words in Goldsmith's book. To receive the word of God or spiritual sense, we need to feel rather than reason. This is referred to biblically as receiving the word in the heart. They're saying the same thing. I walked around in Key West in a daze. Absolutely, this to me was a no other explanation moment than that there is a God. Until that point in my life, God was this being like a human being, but bigger in a little box. But God to me had all kinds of connotations, especially with the parents I grew up with and their feelings towards religion. So on my spiritual path, I had to find a new way of looking at God as so much bigger than something in a little box with limited ideas. And I had felt that in meditation. I was feeling it every day. And what I felt when I set the story aside was nothing less than joy. So since from years ago, I've been calling God joy. It's the underlying essence of all of us. It's the part of us that never changes. You know, God spelled backwards is dog. It's why I call my little girl Nellie Joy. And here she is with Lynette. We all know that animals can express that unconditional love that's within all of us, little created in the image of joy, blessings that they are. So that's my little side story about how when that visit with Jesus happened in my reading, I didn't doubt it at all. I just knew that's him. So the day after that reading for that woman, I had to go back to my physician for some regular blood work. While there, I offhandedly told the nurse practitioner, I've stopped using the omeprazole and the Prilosec. It's just not working for me. And I told her all about the dizzy spells and the confusion. Well, next thing you know, they've strapped me to an EKG. They're running tests. And she says, the doctor just wants to put a heart monitor on you for a week, because maybe that was causing the dizziness. My very first thought was, oh my God, I have to fly to Tucson this weekend for a big medium summit at the University of Arizona. I wore a heart monitor maybe 20 years ago, and it was this thing you carried in a bag and you had wires sticking out of your clothes. It was such a hassle. And I thought, I cannot sit at a table with fellow mediums doing readings with that all over me. And imagine my relief to see that times they have changed. And this is what heart monitors look like these days. It really was just this big, completely hidden under just the right clothes. And so I agreed to wear it, even though I knew I knew there was nothing wrong with my heart. Just like Wolf said, and I've heard those words before in my book, Wolf's Message, there is nothing wrong with my heart. But I knew they were trying to cover all the bases, so I just went along with them, whatever. Well, that was Monday. Tuesday was last month's monthly connection. And if you were part of that, you may recall I shared the story of Jesus coming through in the reading. And then I did a channeling live at the end of last month's connection. I've been doing that monthly for about 6 months at least. And usually it's my collective group, Sanaya, who comes through. But as I tuned in, I was quite stunned to feel Jesus. And I knew he was the one who wanted to speak. And inside, I felt that same awkwardness that I always felt when my mother brought up religion at home. But I've also trained myself not to filter it. And so I channeled Jesus last month, and I was so gratified to see later in the chat how healing that was. The short message that he gave truly affected people. And some people were crying, and I was gratified that I had gotten out of the way and let him come through. But that didn't mean I didn't have my own healing to do. Why? Well, I got on the phone with Lynette the next morning, and I was saying, I really need to get past this hang up I have. And she couldn't understand why. She understood that, she knew how healing it was. And I told her about this one instance where the same thing happened when channeling in a unity church. A full church of people had come to hear me channel Sanaya, and Jesus came through. When I opened my eyes, one woman in the audience stood up with a look of disdain. I hope you laugh at the picture I chose here for this, and just walked out of the church. And that's all I could focus on. You all may understand that. I think we humans are programmed to focus on the one negative, and if everything else is positive, it's caveman behavior, right? To find that one berry out of the whole batch that might poison us. And so I just keep thinking about that. And I shared that with Lynette, and bless her heart, she said the most wise thing to me. She said, Suzanne, what if, and you probably don't know this story, Suzanne, and I didn't. She said, just like in the story where the one sheep wanders off, what if Jesus will take care of those people who aren't ready to hear you channel him? And he sends the rest of the flock to you to deliver his message through. I just thought that was so beautiful. It really struck me so much so that I got a picture like this, and I bought it last month, and it's sitting on my wall here. It's up on my wall here to remind me to get out of the way. So with that support, I went into meditation, and he came through me again and gave me some beautiful support of his own. And as I came out of meditation, my main guide said, pull a tarot card. There's a message there for you. So I reached down to the tarot deck that sits beside my meditation chair. I hope you will all learn to follow these nudges, to sit in meditation, to use whatever tool it takes to connect with spirit and to trust. And I pulled a card, and I had to laugh. It was one I'd never pulled before. The Four of Cups. To me, this was like the Trinity down here. And here is spirit handing a gift to the one who believes. That's how that came through to me. I knew there was a gift coming to me, but I didn't know how profound it would be. Later that day, I heard, get Joel Goldsmith's little book. This is years later, right? From the instance that I shared with you. So that book is never far away. I haven't looked at it much in years, but I went and got it. And I knew I had to just go reread those 2 verses that Jesus had referenced when he first came to me, just to cement in my heart what a magical, wondrous connection we enjoyed at that time, and why it is that I trust his presence so much. So I went back, and here we are back on page 27. And here's Joel Goldsmith saying, how often do we go on the rocks on this point that we need to trust spirit? How frequently do we attempt to understand spiritual wisdom with our human intellect? Can you all relate to that? How many of you come to me in classes and say, am I just making this up? Is it all in my mind? Here I was totally in my mind and in the ego, worrying what other people thought when I brought through this incredible healer, this incredible teacher, this master, the most loving being I have ever felt. How frequently do we attempt to understand spiritual wisdom with our human intellect? And suddenly I looked down on that page and the next line snagged my attention. This leads to mental indigestion because we are attempting to digest spiritual food with our educated mentality. Truth is not a reasoning process. It must be spiritually discerned. This is the same quote that's always been there, but what did I spend the last half hour telling you about? What were my physical symptoms? Indigestion, inability to digest my food. Anybody who's ever read Louise Hay's work from Hay House knows she has this list that shows how frequently our physical symptoms line up with what's going on with us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's not always accurate, and we don't always want to blame ourselves. We don't ever want to blame ourselves, but we tend to do that. But look at this for me. It was just stunning. There's that word indigestion, and it's been the major focus of my world until that point for the past 6 weeks. And I suddenly got to thinking, I was sad and empty. I was confused. I was off balance. Isn't that how we all feel when we're disconnected from spirit? What a perfect lesson from spirit. It was time for me to question reality again. How real was this indigestion? I was giving it reality. My mother had a diagnosis of GERD. My sister had a diagnosis of GERD. It's probably my genetics. I get a little heartburn. It's coming more and more. It's probably my reality. Wow. I had to go back to my own teaching that I've been teaching for years. We are not only human, we are connected to the one light. We can shift at will and become the witness of our reality and the experiencer at the same time. Who is the witness? The soul. And you are always the soul. But we get caught up in the drama, the symptoms, the diagnoses, and we doubt that we can heal ourselves. We don't always know. Maybe some things can't be healed, but who are we to say at this human level? What was it that Jesus said when he came through just recently to that one woman? My child, you are this spirit too. But that message applies to all of us. And it's a message that my Susan gave to me quite clearly and is part of that Your Emerging Soul course when she came through an amazing encounter that I had with a higher being. And she said, it's all malleable. She's talking about spirit and reality. You said you want to experience oneness, Suzanne. Oneness is all of us. Your guides are here, and Jesus and Archangel Michael, she said to me. And she said, we are all the same, just different instruments in one symphony. And Susan said, which instrument you focus upon is the one you experience. If we put our focus so solely on this reality here, that's all we experience. And she said, can you, as the story of you, all of you listening, state your name, move away from center stage, because we're all souls playing roles as actors on this stage called Earth. And that's the whole point. We can play any of these roles because it's all God. It's all joy. And the more you surrender the story and surrender identifying with the story as the only you, the greater the connection we all enjoy and the greater power. And that's why it's all joy, one light shining through all of us. We call it joy. We are all souls, and that makes us all joyous. It's a play on word, of course. Joy is us, according to Susan. And if you were on my team, you'd know that many of us end our emails to each other, joy as Suzanne, joy as Lynette, joy as Beverly, joy as Valerie, joy as Amy, because we know we are both the story and joy. And boy, when you get to know that, you truly are joyous. All right, with that in mind, let me share with you a gift that Lynette gave me that I also have on the wall. She found this, I don't know where. This is on the stairway leading up to this meditation room. It's a little smiley face, kind of like a spirit cloud. And if you look closely, she found this thing that says joy_us. So it's just perfect. Every time I walk up to meditate or come down from doing a webinar, I see joy us on the wall. And I love that, joy_us. So I hope you can see the gift that was given to me. Remember, I pulled the tarot after realizing I don't need to feel awkward when I channel Jesus. I trust implicitly. This is my role. I was led undoubtedly to find the connection between my mental indigestion, my physical indigestion, and to once again question reality and embrace it all. Embrace the people who can't handle it. Embrace whatever being comes to me, knowing it's all joy us. I hope you can relate this to yourself and feel motivated to do the same, and to understand, what if your challenges are gifts of awakening from the soul level? The challenges. What if I, at the soul level, chose my parents for the very genetics that would give me these challenges? Does that mean we're stuck with them? That's the big question. So I took that into meditation, and I hope you'll get in the habit of doing this too. When you want higher teaching, when you don't understand something, when you want insights and you can't find it in a book and Siri doesn't have it for you, go into meditation. I did that just recently, and I said, show me what I need to know to heal. I did this while I was still wearing the heart monitor. This is all happening in that same week. And I was shown, look, Suzanne, you talk to spirits all the time. Their world is different than our world. In the spirit world, you take on the ideal form. And by the way, that's perfectly proportioned and usually about 35 years old. But they'll come through in a reading in a way that you will recognize them. When you cross the veil, you will recognize them. But when you cross the veil, you'll probably end up about 35 years old in perfect health, perfectly proportioned. And across the veil, cause and effect is instantaneous. Here we make a decision, we take a medication, we have to wait for the results to show up. Across the veil, you say, I think I'll drop in on my loved one, and you're there with us. You think, I think I'll go see the pyramids in Egypt, and you're there instantaneously. But here things are a little slower. So I was shown in that meditation, healing does take place. Cells have their own innate intelligence, don't they? They know what to do to heal. They need good energy. They need pure life force. Leave them alone, give them the right life force, and they will have health. And I looked up online to see how long, after the meditation, of course, how long does it take cells to regenerate? We've been told you have a brand new body every 7 years. And I learned that's not exactly true. You can see you have new bones completely different from 10 years earlier, every 10 years, but bones knit together in 2 months if you break one, right? Stomach lining every 2 days. I saw that and I said, wonder how long it would take to heal that alleged gastric reflux disease. Skin 2 to 3 weeks, red blood cells 4 months. By the way, here's a quiz. Can you name one type of cell in your body that does not regenerate itself? Tooth enamel. Break a bone, it grows. Break a nail, it grows. Chip a tooth, it doesn't grow. Just a little bit of trivia there to break things up a little bit. But in that meditation, I was reminded the basic building block of the universe is not physical. This is what the Nobel Prize was awarded for discovering. Quantum physics has shown this world is not physical. Your body is not as solid as it seems. It depends on your perspective. From the soul's perspective, it's all energy and information. The life force is the cause, the underlying reality. So when we redefine what is real, anything is possible. Remember, my word for NOE, my explanation for that is there is no other explanation than that the greater reality is real. It's why I shared the story with you of Jesus in detail. I have no other explanation for that than that. Beings who once walked this earth walk with us still, and there are greater and greater realities. These NOEs have taken me from belief to faith. And here's the difference in these two words. Belief is in the mind. We rationalize things. I can believe that, but you have to think about it. You have to get your head around it. Can you believe you can heal yourself? Let me think about that. Faith is in the heart. Faith says, I know. And that's what those Bible verses were saying to me. That's what Jesus was saying to me. Get out of the head. It's what Wolf said to me. And into the heart. Don't just believe. Have the faith. Know. And after all these NOEs that I've had ever since Suzanne passed, and you can have as well when you question reality, when you sit in peace daily with the intention of getting to know who you really are at the deeper levels, you can have that knowing too. And I was shown how to heal my indigestion. And I'm not going to just show you. When I finish this narrative part of this evening, we're going to do it. I promised you a guided meditation. I'm going to guide you through the process, through the meditation that Spirit gave me that day after I was given the gift of realizing I needed to get out of my head once again and into the heart. And I knew healing was taking place. Now, we've heard of stories like Anita Morjani, whose body was riddled with tumors, and overnight the tumors disappeared, an absolute miracle. But not all miracles were the same. And having been shown the cell regeneration, I knew in my case, I might get a little more heartburn, but I knew my cells were regenerating themselves, and we had healed whatever little opening was letting that acid come up and give me the heartburn. So I knew not to panic or think I had failed if I got a little heartburn. I knew it is done. More on that later. So all this happened last month, right after the monthly connection. That Friday, off I went to Tucson with my heart monitor on, knowing I absolutely didn't need it. But I had told them I'll wear it for a week. So I wore turtlenecks. You can see me here. Here I am with these other mediums and Dr. Gary Schwartz. We have Rhonda Schwartz, Mark Anthony here, Gary Schwartz and me, and Tina Powers, Andy Lee, Mark Anthony's assistant, Rocky, and Jamie Clark, all gathered for a weekend of doing some very special readings. And I'm trying to hide this heart monitor. And there's Dr. Schwartz saying, "What's that under your shirt? Is that another necklace?" And I said, "Well, it's a heart monitor, but it's no big deal." And we just dropped it because I knew it was no big deal. But when we showed up in Tucson, we all stayed at the same place, this beautiful inn called the Arizona Inn. Remember, I'd been promised a gift. I thought the only gift was discovering that mental indigestion and being led to the healing meditation. But you know, once you start down this path, the gifts come one after another. The magical moments never end, because that's what joy does. It just bubbles up. And when you start to connect the dots and put the pieces to get together and remain open to the miracles, they show up in the most wondrous ways. Well, I checked into the hotel and I saw a gift shop down the hall, and I decided to check it out. I didn't need anything, but I walked in and, oh, over there is this blue leather purse. I'd actually been looking for a blue leather purse for probably about a year. Obviously didn't need it or I would have gotten one, but there was one that was really pretty. And I thought, oh, that'd be nice to memorialize this great weekend of getting together to do research into mediumship with all these other mediums. I think I'll get that one. Are you ready for this? Stop me in my tracks when I looked at the label on that purse, and here it is. Joy, Susan, with a line. My friend, is that a God wink or what? There's the joy line us, joy as Susan. And here's my Susan saying, it's all of us, Suzanne. It's all of us. So obviously I bought the purse. I took the label and I framed it. And it's right here with my very special NOE objects, right where I sit to connect with spirit when I do readings. Why do we need reminders? Because we are human and spirit. But at our very essence, we are all aware. Awareness being. Being what? Well, I have a new name for joy. Abe. We are Abe. Do you know what Abe is? Awareness being everything. Everything, not just people, but beautiful little creatures that are here to spread joy. And just for a moment of levity here, this is my friend Lindy, whose name I clearly remember now that I don't have omeprazole in my system. Lindy brought these little hats for our babies when she came to visit. And I just happened to post this on Facebook last week. And the man I'd given a reading to and brought his son through very clearly across the veil is now noticing synchronicities everywhere. He says he feels so much lighter now. And he sent me a synchronicity from Facebook that will just make your heart swell. Here's a screenshot. On the top, I have to put my glasses on to read it. You may too. Right above my post on Facebook with the puppies is a Far Side cartoon with dogs wearing hats. And the caption says, "If pets wore hats, a study in animal personalities and styles." He had just been asking his son in spirit for something. And that to me is just an example of a God wink. When two little things like that come up back to back on your private Facebook page, it just makes you pay attention. And like he said, he's connecting the dots more often. He had just been talking to his son. These are stories we're all telling. Doesn't make our lives any less real, but the stories of connection across the veil is what will make that greater reality more real to you. So let me share with you another one that just came up last week, because I love to do this every month in the monthly connection webinars. I sat to do a reading. I don't know who my clients are. Lynette schedules them for me. So I said to my client, and I welcomed her to the reading, and I said, how long have you been on my waiting list? And she said, I've been waiting 5 years. And I'm a little embarrassed by that because I hate to make people wait that long. But I said, you know, we come to trust that everything is perfect. I have found out time after time when doing this readings that the timing of these readings is perfect. She said, yes, I couldn't believe it. When Lynette reached out to me on Saturday, I couldn't talk to her. And on Sunday, we connected and she said, Suzanne has one opening for you this week on Thursday. Can you take it? And I said, yes, I'd love to. So this is Thursday. I think it's just last Thursday that I did this, maybe a week ago. But I said, all right, your intention is to connect with loved ones who passed? She said, yes. She's cheerful. She's smiling. I tune in and immediately I sense a partner of hers right here in the room with me, right in front of me. I said, this is your husband. Oh my goodness, he's so lively. He's so eager to talk with you. He's showing me he passed from an illness and he had this bell. He would call you for a while. He's also showing me the whole family was around when he passed. And that woman looked at me and she said, yes, he passed on Monday. I was absolutely stunned. My jaw dropped and I said, this man, you mean Monday, 4 days ago? She said, yes. I said, when did you schedule this reading? She said, Sunday. I looked at my kids and I said, this has to be a God thing. I have a reading with Suzanne on Thursday, and they knew her husband was truly on his last, had taken his last breaths. So she said, I'll take it. And the God wink is that I usually ask people to wait 3 months so they get over the grief fog. And if she had said anything to Lynette, Lynette would have asked her to wait 3 months. But something kept her from saying anything. And her husband was the most outstanding communicator, so eager to let her know he had crossed quite well and was still with them. And the rest of the reading was just beautiful as well. But I wanted to share that wondrous moment with you to help you trust timing, to help you trust spirit, to help you trust whatever is going on in your life, to know that you may feel like a separate person at times, but you are both a limited self and the entire sea of consciousness. So I need to ask you to ask yourself, are you imprisoned by genetics? Could you have chosen your specific body because you knew what genetics you would get from the parents you chose? Could any genetic physical challenge you have be a gift? I don't know. You discern that for yourself, okay? Are you imprisoned by your thoughts? I would say that many times we all are, until we become aware that we are awareness itself and become aware of the way the thoughts bubble up within us. What kind of state are you in most of the time? Happily, when I experienced symptoms, they were so far different than my normal awareness that they stood out. But if this is your normal state of being, that is part of being human, but you're not only human. So in the last email I sent out about tonight, I said we were going to have a special guest this evening. She was on the webinar, if not last month, the month before. And that's my lovely assistant, Valerie. Here I am with a very short haircut. You will just ignore that, okay? It's the only picture I could find for now of me with Valerie. She handles my email and does so lovingly, so beautifully. Well, I will briefly tell you why I'm bringing Valerie in here tonight. She has been in remission from stage 4 cancer for 2 years and doing beautifully. And we've all been so happy for her. But she was told that this cancer often comes back at 2 years. Notice she was told that. So she was told to go have tests done again. So I don't know, about 6 weeks ago or so, she went back and had a battery of tests done. And much to all of our dismay, everybody who knows and loves her, they found a bunch of lesions on her liver. And the diagnosis was, the cancer is back. Everybody was tremendously disappointed. But those of us on this path immediately caught that, set it aside, and went to, how can we do healing circles? How can we support Valerie? But what surprised me almost more than anything is the next week, Valerie and her partner signed up for my Alaska cruise, 8 months away. And I thought, now that is trust. Here's somebody that had stage 4 cancer. She knows she might have to go through chemo. Who knows what's going to happen? We all know what the doctors say when it's spread to your liver. Well, I want to bring Valerie on. I had a conversation with her last week, and I want to talk about some of the sentences she shared with me about her state of mind, because we need to have time for the guided meditation so you all can experience what I experienced in that gift of meditation. We're going to cut right to the bottom line of this whole story. I want to bring Valerie in now. How do I do that? Let's see. Valerie, are you with us here? Unmute yourself. And once you start talking, we'll see you. You're still muted. Do I have to unmute you?
Nope, I got it.
There you are. Hi, Valerie.
Hi. I had to move my iPad because it was running out of battery. I had to plug it in.
Yeah, this is going on. I hope that you won't mind me abbreviating things here, but you had a little miracle where you found a specialist in another state in California. You traveled to California with your partner to have another battery of tests done. And all of us were waiting to see how they were going to treat this cancer that had returned to your liver. Will you share with us what the doctor shared with you, please?
Well, first of all, he looked at me and said, he sat down and said, we have some surprising developments here. And he looked a little confused and he said, nothing is showing up on your PET scan. There is no cancer. He showed me the liver, what they were looking at. And he said, now, you know, here are the spots, but these spots should be lighting up red and they're not. He said, and I looked at him, he said, I'm having to shift, he said. I was ready to find cancer. And now I'm having to shift to, there is no cancer.
It is incredible. And it's so validating that you did not give in to the diagnosis. You kept faith.
There was a part of me that kept saying, I don't know, this just doesn't seem like cancer. It doesn't seem, this just isn't right. I think I mentioned it to quite a few people.
You know your body, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what impressed me most about you, Valerie, is your spirit. I could feel the sadness. And in the conversation we had, you said you never had a moment of despair. Sadness, yes, you're in a beautiful, loving relationship. I'm so happy. I just love your partner for loving you so much, but not despair. What kept you out of despair? What kept you out of despair?
You know, the belief of always knowing that I would have what I needed when I need it, but also, you know, there's so much love that surrounds me, so much from across the veil, here, friends, family, my beautiful partner. You know, any kind of cancer diagnosis, treatment pales in comparison to the love that surrounds me.
You told me You knew that you could handle anything that came at you, and you can physically feel spirit around you.
Yes, I did. I kept feeling it, and I knew that I had whatever I needed. And it was like, even if it was a cancer diagnosis to the liver, even if it was a lifetime chemo diagnosis, somehow I just knew it was going to be okay either way.
Either way, that's you're such an inspiration to everyone. I mean, you went through hell 2 years ago, and here you are. And then here comes this diagnosis again that to all of us seemed even worse, that had spread to the liver. And I love the quote you gave. I wrote it down. I didn't want to miss it. What ifs can drag you down. So what if it's not? That kept you going. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That did keep me going.
And you said you can face something scary and know you're taken care of.
Yes, and that's it. That's it. You know, I had told my sister, you know, I've trained all my life for this. You know, I've always known that I was always going to be okay, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, we love you, and we're just so thrilled for you. And
Yes, I'm so thrilled myself.
I'll bet a new lease on life. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for coming on and sharing with all of us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Spirit.
Amen. All right. So that's Valerie's story. And one other story I want to share with you, because I was talking about this with my beautiful friend Irene, and her daughter Carly passed from esophageal cancer. And I was sharing Valerie's story. And you know, it's very normal to have those feelings. Well, why isn't everybody healed? Why did my daughter die? Why did my loved one die? And why are some people healed and some people aren't? So I really feel that it's important to share with you again, because I've shared with this with many of you in the past, about my dear friend Brenda, who is now my guide in spirit. This is Brenda 1 week before she passed to spirit. She had bile duct cancer. The very week that she reached out to me for the very first time, I channeled Sanaya for her. I didn't know Brenda, and Sanaya said that Brenda had all kinds of problems in the stomach area from shoving down her feelings and her personal power for her entire life. And sure enough, she eventually passed from that cancer. This doesn't mean that we're all ultimately going to die from whatever thoughts we shove down, but look at me with the mental indigestion, and I had the indigestion. And it's just truly amazing how our physical body reacts to the underlying cause that arises before the physical, the mental and emotional feelings. So it's so important to remain aware of what we're telling ourselves and how we're dealing with life's challenges, the perspective that we take. And do we step out of the physical body from the human viewpoint and know what the soul knows, that we are not limited beings? So 1 month before Brenda passed, I encouraged her to try one more time with the healer. It was a risk because she had already accepted that she was going to pass. She went to that healer, and we all, for a little while, thought she had been healed. She had been unable to concentrate, and suddenly she could meditate again. She wasn't eating. She got her appetite back again. We thought, could the cancer really have disappeared? And it had not. And within a month, she passed. Well, within hours, she appeared to me at my side from spirit, saying, I'm right here, with the most amazing, irrefutable evidence that Brenda is still with us. I'm not going to go into that now. Many of you have heard my story about her asking if I liked her boa, which related directly to a story that she and Lynette had shared and I had never heard. But she said, Suzanne, that healing that I had, it really did heal me. It healed the last of her emotional density. It healed the last of the bit that held her back from truly knowing who she really is as a free soul. And she said, it's why I'm talking to you right now, only hours after I passed. I know who I am. I don't need to hold on to that story of me in a body. That first time that Sanaya channeled for Brenda, Sanaya gave her a mantra, and she said it daily, probably till the day she died. And it was, I am free. A lot of people didn't understand why Brenda walked around saying, I am free, I am free. It's because Spirit told her to say that. Free from what? Free from the thoughts that were holding her back from celebrating her magnificence. So what is healing? It doesn't always mean not dying. It means healing anything that's keeping the life force from flowing freely through you as it is meant to do. We are all souls. At one level, we are whole, complete, and perfect. But souls are awareness bubbling up, and that the souls take on stories and enact roles, and genetics are part of that, and physical ailments are part of that for the experience of it. So whether we heal or not, you are still going to always be whole. But healing could be part of your experience here to bring you to the awareness that you are joy at your very essence. Brenda found that even though she ultimately passed from cancer, she was healed. I've talked to Carly across the veil, and she is beautiful as ever and still communicating with her mom. Of course, we would love all of our loved ones to be here with us, and they are, just not in physical form. As for me, what time is it now? 4 hours ago today, I got a call from my doctor. Mrs. Giesemann, we got the results from your heart monitor. Everything's fine. And of course, I already knew that. I was just playing along with the game. You want me to wear a heart monitor? I know my body. I know it's fine, but it is. And I just flowed with it. And as for the heartburn, my friends, it is gone. I don't have GERD. It bubbled up as part of the story. It showed up every day so that I would follow the human path and see how that worked out for me until I remembered again who I really am and had this beautiful encounter with Jesus and trust myself all the more to own this part of the story that says any of us can connect with Jesus, and if it serves the greater good, we'll serve in whatever way presents it for us when we do so from love. So I echo Brenda. Without that GERD, without the heart monitor, even with it, I am just filled with gratitude, because no matter what happens to this physical body, I am free. And it's my greatest desire that all of you listening will start using this as your mantra until it truly means something to your heart more than something in your head. So with perfect timing, would you like to do the meditation with me now that was given to me when I sat and asked, show me what to do with this symptom that I've been having? All right, so I'm going to have some water here for a second as you get settled in. And if you're sitting on a chair, how about uncrossing your legs and just get comfortable? Don't have anything on your lap. Shut out all distractions. If people are running around you, you might want to ask them to go away. You might want to shut the door here for a second. You might want to turn the lights down a little bit. And I'm going to ask my guides to guide this for us so that it comes out even differently than I think and in more wondrous ways than I expect. And we're going to do this with the intention that each of us is healed on some level, whatever level we need, to the greatest of our ability to receive this at this point. I would suggest that while it's very human for us to hold in our awareness that we can pinpoint something specific that we want to heal, but that your soul is already whole. And if you look for healing in general, your soul will know exactly what needs to be healed in you. And you may get a different healing than you even expect. Could be even greater than you expect. All right. So if you join me, please, in closing your eyes. I'd like you to imagine a shaft of white light that's coming down around you now. It comes down from the heavens, goes around your body and through your body, and anchors you into the center of the earth. That light is always present. It's been flowing through you since you took your very first breath. It carries the flow of the life force from which you can't be disconnected. It is breathing you now, enlivening every cell in your body now. It will be with you even when you no longer have a physical body. You cannot be separated from you. It is you. This light is your source and the source of all of us gathered here. Sitting in this light, take in a nice, slow, deep breath through the nose and pull it all the way down into the belly. Relax completely as you exhale softly through the mouth, releasing all the air from your lungs, helping you to relax even more. Take in another nice deep breath into the belly. As you exhale, relax even more and scan your entire body for any areas that are holding any tension. Just let it go as you thoroughly relax. Let's take in one more deeply healing breath. And as you exhale, just release any cares, any fears. Release all tension as you simply dissolve into this present moment as if melting. Any thoughts that are running through your head, just let them go. Just be the clear blue sky, knowing that thoughts will arise like clouds. You may notice them, let them pass by. Any distractions that arise are also like clouds. Let them drift by. Move your awareness to the heart and bring to mind several things for which you're so very grateful. Feel that gratitude as you bring all of that into your heart. Feel that connection that gratitude engenders between you and all that is. Take your heart light and fill all of space with your light. We're going to go a bit higher now in awareness. And so imagine that the chair you're in now is just becoming bigger and bigger and somehow rising up, up. Perhaps you're in a hot air balloon, lifting up absolutely weightless, rising above your story. It's not at all scary. You feel completely safe And as you gaze about, all you see is light, no distractions whatsoever. And the balloon deposits you in an area that's beautiful. How does it look to you? Take in all of the scenery around you. You are a little piece of heaven right here, very different from your earthly surroundings. You are creating this in your mind, but it's also arising from the one sea of all consciousness where anything is possible. You're seated now on a very comfortable chair, as in this expanded state, thoughts become reality instantly. You feel on each side of you helpful beings. They appear to be wearing medical garments like lab coats, and yet they have a glow. They're not of the earthly world. They radiate love and support, and they encourage you to look in front of you and there is a healing table. Perhaps you've seen such a table. You might have received a massage on one at one point. You might have received healing on one at some point. It's a padded table in a beautiful setting. Perhaps you can hear soft music, but this is the music of the spheres. It's not of the earthly realm. This is a healing temple. And suddenly, there on that healing table is a form. It's a perfect body. And you realize, you simply know, this is your etheric template. This is the blueprint for your physical body. It is prior to your physical body. It is a causal body. It is the form without solidity that your body in physical form follows. You can see there the genetics that you signed up for. You can see the DNA. You may not understand it, but you know that it carries the pattern for your body. You can see elements of your parents there and how it has affected you. You can even see energetically in that form certain characteristics and traits that you agreed to take on. But there is a knowing within you at this higher level that all of that has brought you to this point now. And suddenly there is no judgment of your body at all. You realize you may have judged your body. You may have put it down. You may have disdained it. You may have somehow felt at fault or bad or wrong or ashamed of certain ways of being, of the way the body has reacted, of the way the body has treated you, and vice versa. But you see, it all now came from this template. And suddenly a light emerges as if from clouds above and shines down on that form, on that healing table. Gorgeous, beautiful rays of light flooding that template. It's sparkling now. And the light itself is asking you, are you ready for a new moment, a new template, a new pattern to follow? Do you believe that healing can take place? Are you ready to know this is so? And you do know, for you can see that this light is the source of all that is, not just coming from those clouds, but creating this entire experience. And you say, yes, I am ready. And the light shines on this form on the table and transforms it into the perfect divine template. And it is sparkling, and it is new, and it is healed at all levels: mental, emotional, spiritual. And all of these levels, you know, will feed into the physical when you take it back with you. And in that instant of knowing this, that form moves off the table, moves towards you, and merges with you, sitting there in that chair, flanked by your angelic helpers. And it completely blends with your being, fitting perfectly. And you can feel the sparkling, and you can feel the light, and you can feel the awareness in the cells of what you know as a physical body saying, thank you. We can align with this higher energy. We know what to do. We can entrain with this perfection. The past is the past. We know who we are. And now you know in your wholeness, we are one, just as all is one with this light that this form now carries. And you give permission to the self to carry this awareness back with you as you return back into the story that you, the soul, have been playing for decades. So much more aware now that the story is very real, but that as you shift to the soul level, anything is possible. You know that part of the story is that the end of the story is not known. This is part of the joy of the journey. It is what keeps you always moving onward and upward. Always being led by love. And in this awareness, with hope, with joy, and with renewed love in your very being, you bid farewell to your helpers in awareness, knowing they will always be at your side. For it is all awareness being everything. And this image fades from awareness, but remains in your field as a new element of your story. And you know that you have a choice as to how this story will unfold moving forward. But the healing that has taken place is very real. The light that has been imbued in your body is very real. For you are this. And with utter gratitude for what has been received, we all come back as one in full awareness of this story here and now. Wiggle your fingers and toes, taking a breath and feel that life force coming through your body. And allow me to just finish this presentation with gratitude for the guides for that. Shifting now to wrap all of this up. I hope that settled well in your heart. I know that many of you right now are feeling an intense state of calm. That peace is always here within you. You felt it there, and all it took was shifting your focus. Life has its ups and downs, so know that when it goes down, even when it gets a bit too up, you know how to find this peace again. It's not outside you. Go into the silence. Listen for that break between 6 and 8. That moment of silence is just the beginning. A question I like to ask students: why is being in the now important? And we were so very much in the now for these past 20 minutes or so, is to find the part of you that doesn't change. It's right here. When you can find that place, you will find every other being. You will find Abe. When we go to the past, we fall back on our limited ways. When we go to the future, we fall into those what ifs. The more you can be present with what's here and now, the more you find peace and the more you find your true self. So learn to make that shift that you just experienced now, like getting in that hot air balloon and rising above the story, rising above the stage. That shift, it's expanding your awareness from that belief that you're separate to everything is part of one whole. That shift takes place when you set aside your identification with yourself as only the story. This is the acronym that I teach. Most of you, I hope, are familiar with my Bless Me method of connecting with higher consciousness. If not, you can find it online on YouTube and on my website and in my Awaken Way app, 7 Steps for Connecting with Higher Consciousness. The 2 S's stand for set aside your identification with the story and shift and then merge with higher consciousness like we just did just then. There are so many resources for you. If you don't know where to begin, go to my homepage and scroll down. There's a whole menu of resources, many of which are absolutely free. Gifts from me, from Spirit, to help you find your higher self, which is right here. And oh, by the way, also your loved ones who have passed. Because as Brenda and so many have taught me, including Jesus, the masters, and so many across the veil, there's only here in awareness. So that's my journey tonight of the Awakened Way. I just want to remind you, if you'd like to further your journey, I call the 3 E's of living the Awakened Way: educate, experience, and engage. Tonight's all about educating you about who you really are. Read all you can, watch the YouTube videos, check out all the resources I have and so many other people. That's the educate portion. If you want to know more and have more of these experiences and keep this healing going, experience higher consciousness for yourself. You just did in that guided meditation. And isn't it awesome to feel yourself that way? And pretty soon you'll learn to engage the beings you meet there and then buckle your seatbelt. But always remember, It's all joy. And the bottom line of all of this, and I'll leave you with this tonight, as my guides leave us after every one of their messages, the bottom line is, you are so very loved. As my guides say, it can be no other way. Why? Because we all share the same source. And when there is no separation as beings within one field, we call that love. And as the Awaken Way says, I'll recap it for you again, you are not only human. Hopefully this evening you really know, you don't just believe, you are part of one big web connecting all that is. And you are so very loved because the creative, healing force of the universe is love. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you all. It just can't be any other way. And so may the healing continue. Good night, everybody.